Baseball isn't just numbers, numbers, numbers.
This game is not being played on computers.
You don't do that with a bunch of statistical gimmicks.
You don't put a team together with a computer.
We're talking
weighted runs created plus,
expected WOBA,
his sweet spot rate,
defensive runs above average,
average exit velocity,
barrel rate,
xFIP,
BABIP,
SIERA.
We are above replacement radio. And welcome to Above Replacement Radio. We're talking baseball kind of whenever. I'm your host, Chris Giant. Over there on the other side of the screen is Daniel Curran. How you doing, Daniel?
Chris, I'm doing very well today. Finally, we're getting to a point where we're both available to do a mid-series pod and not just doing the whole series at once. We've gone through 3 ALCS games, 4 NLCS games. One series could end tonight as we're recording this. One series is going at least 2 more games. But we got some good action to talk about. Last night was very fun. We've gotten some good games in each series. A lot of high scoring games, a lot of good pitching, a couple big moments here and there. We got some stuff to talk about today.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like, I feel like at this point in the series, we're not really surprised by anything that's going down. I think the result has, obviously in the Dodgers-Mets series, we expected that to be a little bit more competitive, but Yankees leading after 3. It was more of a question of whether they were going to be leading 2-1 or 2-0. Did we want to get into the Guardians-Yankees series first?
Yeah, I feel like we could just kind of give an overall view of what we've thought of the series so far before we dive into the game by game stuff because I think it's been a tale of 2 series between the first 2 games and last night. Last night was very fun, but there's definitely been some rough moments that each team has had in terms of some of the fundamentals, right? I mean, neither team is outside of the late innings of last night, neither team was really hitting well with runners in scoring position. Neither team was running the bases well, playing good defense. The Yankees have made like 3 outs on the base pass. The Guardians have made some awful errors. It's been a rough product, but last night at least was very fun.
Yeah, for sure. It's the first 2 games really made it look like the National League champion was going to have a fun time in the World Series, whoever that may be. But obviously things can change and they made for a really good contest last night with lots of lead changes, lots of momentum swings, lots of huge moments, and also some relievers who are used to success who were not succeeding last night. I mean, it was very, very refreshing to have that because we hadn't had a game of any of that caliber for like a week or so.
It's been a rough postseason in general for like good relievers as a whole.
Yeah.
Josh Hader had a bad outing that cost his team the season. Devin Williams, of course, had that bad outing. Clase's given up more home runs in the postseason already than he did the entire regular season. Luke Weaver was looking awesome for a few games. He's given up home runs in back-to-back games now, both on the changeup, which is like his best pitch.
Yeah.
So it's been a rough postseason for closers as a whole.
Yeah, and then Clay Holmes gives up the walk-off homer.
Mm-hmm.
It is still kind of funny to watch now that we're fully into those rules. Like it's kind of funny to see the extra innings start without the base runner now.
It's so refreshing.
Yeah. It's pretty nice.
Nice. I've always said this, a rule is good when you just like everyone knows you don't do it in the postseason.
Yeah.
Because you just can't justify that.
Yeah, but I get it. It's a 162 game season.
Yeah.
And it's more of a preservation of everybody, but still, it was pretty cool. But I was thinking like, oh, because the Mets Dodgers game was on, and I was like, am I gonna have to like double screen for the next 2 hours? But that did not happen as it finished out in the 10th. What were we kind of seeing in game 1 of the series?
Yeah, so I mean, game 1, it was a 5-2 Yankees win. And this was really, I mean, the story of this game was Carlos Rodon, right? I mean, he had a rough outing in game two of the ALDS against the Royals. He's overall had a rough tenure as a Yankee. Obviously, he signed a pretty big contract, 6 years, 162 million. This really felt like, you know, statistically it wasn't, but it felt like the best Yankee start we've ever seen out of Carlos Rodon, given the circumstances, given the performance, and given the context. 6 innings pitched, 3 hits, 1 run, and the 1 run being a sixth inning home run to Brian Rocchio. No walks, 9 strikeouts. 37.6% called strike and whiff rate, the second highest that he's had all season. 25 swings and misses, the most he has had in a game this season. A 47.2% whiff rate, the second highest that he has had this season. And that's getting into all the strikeouts and stuff. Additionally, 69.2% whiff rate on his slider, which is his secondary pitch, tied for the 11th highest among the 316 pitchers with 10 plus swings on a slider in a postseason game since 2008. So over the last 15 or so years, we've only seen a few games with that kind of dominance on a slider, given the sample size we saw out of Carlos Rodon that night. And then on the batted ball side of things, 41.7% of all batted balls given up by Carlos Rodon were 45 degrees or higher, the second highest rate for him this season. So I mean, this was really the Carlos Rodon start. I mean, he got good batted balls other than the Rocchio home run. Very good whiff, no walk. Yeah, he really just tore through this Cleveland lineup in a way that I don't think many people maybe took into account.
Yeah, for sure. And Cleveland's a pretty contact heavy team. Maybe not necessarily like top five in terms of avoiding strikeouts, but I think top 10 against both left-handers and right-handers. So yeah, that was a big challenge for Carlos Rodon to get that many swings and misses, but he did. And yeah, it's one of those things where, we I think a lot of the concern from the Yankees point of view was, the rotation behind Cole, like how much can you rely on it? But yeah, Carlos Rodon is kind of dissolving, has kind of dissolved some of that worry, at least in that start against Cleveland.
Yeah, I mean that was a huge start for him. I mean, it was, obviously you want to start the series off on a high note, and he certainly did that. But additionally just they've needed this out of him for so long, even in a regular season start, and to get it on this stage is so crucial, not just right now, but also going forward, because you got to outlook this offseason at some point in a couple of weeks and figure out what you expect out of Carlos Rodon, just going into year three of that contract. And if you can give yourself some sort of faith, with this start and maybe anything going forward, like that's huge, especially because the strikeouts were kind of the reason you signed him in the first place. And that was, a really good sign in that last start. We mentioned all the whiffs, right? But you want to get him up to that point where he was with the strikeouts, with the White Sox and with the Giants.
Yeah, yeah. For this year, he obviously he was a disaster in 2023, but this year, kind of at least in the regular season, he solidified as someone who you could rely on at least every
Mm.
fifth day. Starts like these could help help the Yankees potentially realize or potentially come to the idea that he's someone you couldn't rely on in the postseason as, a top three option in the rotation, as opposed to just a guy in the rotation, which was kind of what his numbers reflected this year. He had a 3.96 ERA, 4.14 expected ERA. That's someone who you can definitely have in a rotation, but in a playoff rotation, it might be a little bit more questionable. But with a start like this, I think that brings a lot of confidence to the Yankees in general.
On the offensive side of things, the Yankees scored 5 runs despite going 0 for 7 with runners in scoring position. So, they didn't make the most of the given opportunities, but they created their own in other ways, right? There was a Juan Soto solo home run. Giancarlo Stanton hit a 2-run home run, and then I believe they scored on 2 sac flies. So, that was definitely, I mean, that's something with runners in scoring position, not a hit, but still produced a run. But overall, they still hit the ball very well. 98.5 mile per hour average exit velocity for the Yankees, a 19% barrel rate, a 19% walk rate, which is something that we've talked about with them throughout this postseason, and then a 52% sweet spot rate. So I mean, they made hard contact, they hit it on the right part of the ball. 5 runs almost felt generous for Cleveland in this game, given how the Yankees hit it. But that's what happened, and it was enough.
Yeah, yeah. I was surprised looking at those numbers for sure. Also, I guess should be mentioned not to, you know, um kick him while he's down, but Joey Cantillo had quite the
Yeah,
day.
that
Um,
was rough.
I think that's part of why the Yankees were able to score despite, not doing well with runners in scoring position. He definitely advanced some guys with some wild pitches. I can see right now he had three walks in a third of an inning. He faced four batters, he walked three of them. I don't think it doesn't appear that um it doesn't appear that the wild pitches are tracked in that the wild
Baseball
pitches
Savant.
are tracked in baseball reference, which
Oh, yeah, no, I don't think so. I mean,
yeah,
if you saw the outing, you knew what it looked like. I think the funniest thing from that is that it started the conversation of like the catcher on one knee and the impact that that has, and that's kind of an analytical talking point that's gotten a lot of pushback. It's kind of like the new launch angle, and it's like, dude, did you see where he was throwing these pitches? Like, doesn't matter how many knees are down. You could have 16 knees down, and it still doesn't guarantee you're gonna block those.
yeah, exactly. He
You
threw
could be like
four
an octopus.
he exactly. He threw four wild pitches. So
Yeah.
that was that, very unfortunate from him. And
Oh, the
yeah,
two runs didn't score on sac flies. They scored on wild pitches. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
I said sac flies.
so yeah, so yeah, Yankees take advantage of that. They end up winning 5-2. Based on kind of that little bit of luck as well as Carlos Rodon's amazing performance. But yeah, game two,
Real quick, I have one more stat on game one. For the
yeah,
Cleveland Guardians, they had 33 swings and misses throughout the entire game. That is the most they've had in a game all season.
yeah, and that kind of goes to the point where they usually thrive on contact and
Hmm.
are doing the best when they're making the most contact. And yeah,
They were making quite literally the least.
Carlos Rodon and the rest of the Yankees staff was making sure that wasn't happening. Then yeah, game two happens. Not a whole lot to remember about it. I guess, Aaron Judge uh, finally made some sort of impact. But overall, the Yankees had eight batted balls hit above 105 miles per hour, which is tied for the franchise postseason record since 2015, also known as the StatCast era. The Guardians, as you mentioned before, like there's been points in this series where neither team has really taken advantage of opportunities. That was exemplified in game two when the Guardians went 0 for 7 with runners in scoring position and had an 0.37 expected batting average. And the Guardians had at least five opportunities with the bases loaded. I think ended up with five total, but uh,
Hmm.
went 0 for 5 with the bases loaded, two strikeouts and an 0.25 expected batting average. So it's not like they were getting um, BABIP, they weren't hit. No one hit a screaming line drive that was just caught by an
No,
infielder.
it was not even that no one hit a screaming line drive. It was that no one hit anything competitive. If you look at the five at bats they had with the bases loaded, it was two strikeouts, like I mentioned. One of them was a looking strikeout on that curveball by Brian Rocchio in the seventh. Austin Hedges struck out, believe it or not. And then it was the David Fry pop up, the pinch hit pop up on the first pitch. And then there was another couple. It was a ground ball, just like a weak ground ball that did score a run. It was a force out at second base, and then another pop up. So I mean, nothing even competitive.
Yeah,
Um, in those situations.
right. Yeah.
I do want to. I was very perplexed by the David Fry pinch hit in the fourth inning. They pitched so Garrett Cole was still on the mound. I believe at this point it was like a 3-0 game or something like that. Maybe 3-1, 3-2. But the Guardians had the bases loaded in the fourth inning. They Bo Naylor came up with two outs. With one out. They pinch hit for David Fry, and David Fry popped out on the first pitch. But just generally speaking, I get that it's a big spot and you want to have a better matchup, and maybe David Fry was that at the time. But like you're like when you take Bo Naylor out of the game that early, I know that he has not been hitting well this entire series, but I just have a hard time justifying guaranteeing that Austin Hedges has to stay in the rest of the game in the fourth inning.
Yeah.
And
It's
you
tough,
know,
but I have to imagine just whoever was in the Guardians dugout was probably thinking, this is this is probably going to end up being one of the more important at bats of the game, and I guess that's what the thinking
It
was.
felt like they
However,
really put a lot of pressure on David Fry that at bat. Like they really banked on him coming through. And, I mean, he's done it this postseason. He did it last night. He did it in Detroit. Like he's had some big hits this postseason. So, I get that that's maybe the guy that you want to lean on in that spot. But I mean, that's such an early point of the game to make a commitment to playing your worst hitter the rest of the way out. And I mean,
yeah,
wouldn't you know it, the next inning he came up with bases loaded and 2 outs and struck
yeah,
out.
yeah, you're trading, yeah, you're trading for at least, two plate appearances from Hedges, if not like
Which is like
three.
basically having a pitcher hit.
Essentially, yes. But uh, but yeah, no, it definitely was an interesting decision. Didn't end up working out, um, but yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, um, obviously you have to question it not just because it didn't work out, but because of the process. But if it did work out, it'd be like, man, Stephen Vogt's got some guts. He really,
Yeah, I mean it's a very hindsight thing to say, but I don't know. Put guaranteeing that Hedges is in the lineup from the fifth inning on is tough.
no, yeah, that's what I'm saying is like,
Yeah, and I get why the
even
decision was made, but I would have to imagine there was some. But I mean, just the fact that there was so much on the line in that one at bat in the fourth inning, right? Where you're burning David. You first of all you're burning David Fry because it's the only time you're going to see him all game. Because obviously you're going to have to put out a defensive replacement for him. You're sacrificing Bo Naylor, which you got rid of a matchup in that case. You could have had lefty righty, which not that that really matters in any particular case, but you sacrifice that for a righty righty matchup. It didn't work out, and yeah, like you mentioned, if David Fry comes through, we're having a different conversation here. But I mean, that is such a massive risk to take in such an early point of the game, and there were other opportunities later on where it came back to bite them.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying is even if it worked out, there it's still very questionable.
Mm-hmm.
Because yeah, I mean, looking at the odds and what you're dealing with for the future and what you're signing up for the rest of the game, yeah, it definitely adds a whole different layer. I'm trying to see, and yeah, David Fry, looking at what he did this year, he also, yeah, he only has a 676 OPS against right-handers this year. So that's makes it even more surprising. Like he's someone who really destroys lefties. He had a 996
Mm-hmm.
OPS against lefties this year. But Garrett Cole obviously is right-handed, so it makes the trade-off look even worse, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah, that's definitely that's something I forgot about actually. But yeah,
Yeah, that one had me a little perplexed for sure.
that was
Also,
perplexing.
like, I don't know, just the fact that they keep hitting the catcher eighth uh and Brian Rocchio ninth is also a little weird to me.
Yeah,
Like
I've
Rocchio has been one of the best hitters. Catchers as a whole this postseason have been bad. I don't know if you've noticed that. I want
true,
to check
yeah.
this. Because it was mentioned on one of the broadcasts last night, but I've picked up on it, but never knew the specific degree. Um, All right, let me see. Throughout the postseason, all catchers on every team are hitting a combined 169 with a 255 slugging,
Yeah, because
which
even the higher profile guys like
yeah, I mean, like obviously
Alvarez,
Adley Rutschman only played a couple games, uh, but I mean Austin Wells, I think like he got benched last night for Jose Trevino. I couldn't think of the name for a second. Alvarez has struggled. Will Smith has been fine, I guess. He's probably been the best one. Um, yeah, like obviously Cleveland, that kind of goes without saying. Bo Naylor got his first hit of the playoffs last night. Um, yeah, I don't know. It's been tough.
yeah, yeah, no, there I as you said that I was thinking of all the catchers, and yeah, I haven't thought of like one big thing
Salvador
that
Perez was
happened.
decent, I guess.
Wait, who is that?
Salvador Perez,
Salvador. Oh yeah, no, I think
he had a
he,
couple
he
home
had his
runs.
moments. Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure. Um, the exception, Salvador Perez. But yeah, the Yankees start out leading 2-0 in this one. But yeah, the Guardians have a have an amazing victory where it
I
looked very much in doubt at certain points. What did you?
mean, it was literally according to Savant, it was a 99% Yankees win before the Jonk homer.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah. Do you want to get into the details of this?
Yeah, I mean, what a fun game this one was. Late in the game and whatnot. The Guardians are up. We'll just start in the eighth inning, really. I mean, the Guardians are up 3-1. Kyle Manzardo hit a big home run in the third. Um, the Yankees had won. And then Emmanuel Clase comes in after a Juan Soto walk against Hunter Gaddis. Aaron Judge immediately hits a home run on a pretty good pitch from Clase. Like he put it low and away. It was really just a great piece of hitting from Judge. And just for some context, right? There's been a lot of talk about Aaron Judge this postseason and the way that he's performed overall, and obviously he's broken out a bit more in the last couple games, but it's really a broader career thing for him too. And just to put some context on it, the eighth inning home run that Aaron Judge hit against Emmanuel Clase last night had a 327 WPA win probability added. That means it shifted the Yankees win probability by 32%. And that is his first career postseason event with a win probability added of at least 20%, and it was 32.7%. So just to give you an idea, I mean, you don't need a metric to tell you that's the clutchest moment Aaron Judge has ever had in the postseason in his career. Because I think if you look through any game that he's played, any moment that he's had, that's the biggest one. Uh, but if you want an exact number, there it is. And then Giancarlo Stanton also homers to make it 4-3. So obviously that game got flipped on its head pretty quickly with Clase and what he did. And in the ninth inning, Jose Ramirez reached on a field error. Josh Naylor grounded into a double play, which set up a Lane Thomas barrel double off of Luke Weaver, and then Jhonkensy Noel, big Christmas himself. I mean, he just absolutely destroys this changeup. He left it hanging. He deposited it pretty immediately into the left field seats. I mean, one of the great big moment home runs where you just immediately know that it's gone, right? I mean, I feel like you don't see that one too often because you think back to say the Pete Alonso homer, he knew it off the bat, but I think the average fan was kind of waiting to see it go out. There was no questioning the Jhonkensy Noel ball.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, I mean, rarely do you have like an absolute no doubter like that, and then to put it into the biggest moment for the Guardians in the postseason so far, it adds a whole nother layer of just pure awesomeness to it. Yeah, it was like it. It's very rare to have a situation like that. Like even in some of the thinking back to some of the more like clutch home runs in uh in playoff history, like obviously like Rajay Davis, it was kind of like,
Mhm.
okay, is it going to go out? The David Ortiz grand slam back in 2013, that was a question. Hunter almost caught that, but to have a just absolute no doubter, it definitely adds a cool element to it.
The Rajai Davis home run is definitely better for the CWPA rather than the regular WPA because that
Yeah,
obviously conveniently happened for him in Game 7 of the World Series.
yeah,
I want to check the stat again just to make sure that I have this right. But I checked earlier and it said that the Jhonkensy Noel home run had a 488 win probability added, 48.8%, the third highest for any one play in Cleveland postseason history.
wow,
Yeah, I want to double check that one just to make sure. Because I'm pretty sure that's what it was. Yeah, the
yeah,
CWPA king was certainly Rajai Davis. Um, yeah, that's what I'm seeing here.
there we go, third.
Yeah, the Rajai Davis homer only had 390 in that game individually, which is the ninth highest, or excuse me, the seventh highest for Cleveland. Obviously for CWPA, it's first, but yeah, the number one win probability added play for Cleveland in postseason history was also done recently against the Yankees. It was the Oscar Gonzalez walk-off single in Game 3 of the ALDS, and then that
Yeah,
was a 736 win probability added. Obviously, walk-offs help because it jumps the win probability to 100%, and
yeah,
nothing that's not a walk-off can ever really do that.
yeah. And
Um,
also it was it they were down in that game,
yes,
so that
yep.
also helps. But yeah, with the Noel home run, it jumps it from like, a 1% chance to probably a 50% chance. And then the Davis one, I think that was in the seventh inning, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that was the seventh inning. So it probably jumped it from um like 15% to 50% or something close to that.
Yeah.
Um, since it was a tie game. It's a lot of it is a matter of
Which
like
Noel did the same thing, but it happened to be the ninth instead.
yeah, if you're doing it,
Two outs in the ninth as well, which means
yeah,
that the win probability added was much lower when he hit it compared to Davis, because I think the deficit was the same at both times, right? It was two
yeah,
runs in each.
two run game, but
Yeah.
yeah,
So
since
I'm so happy that it was specifically Jhonkensy Noel that had this moment. He was so due, and I really wanted to talk about him, but then we went through this major slump and it just didn't feel right. That home run was the first he had hit since August 30th. It was his first barrel since September 2nd.
wow,
One thing that I've always really liked about Jhonkensy Noel, you look at him and he, has the look of you kind of know what kind of player he is, right? He hits the ball very hard. He strikes out a lot, maybe doesn't play very good defense. You've kind of seen this player before. Noel's like average exit velocity is actually not that crazy. It's below 90 miles per hour this year. But he has such good distribution of power numbers. When I first really dove into him, which was right around the time he had hit his last home run in late August, early September, I believe like 50% of his fly balls at that point had been pulled.
oh yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. And I was thinking about it because Cleveland just hasn't had that kind of right-handed bat in so long. The most recent guy that really comes to mind for me is Edwin Encarnacion. And I'm talking like full right-handed bat. I'm not talking about like Jose Ramirez against lefties,
yeah.
right? I mean, you could also maybe point to what was it, 2021 Franmil Reyes, I guess, but he didn't have the same distribution of power numbers. And Noel was crazy at one point this season. He had like a 950 OPS after like 30 games played. But yeah, he went through a really bad slump in September. Was kind of platooning throughout the postseason. But I mean, yeah, he needed that home run so bad, and it came at the best time.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, we kind of knew he had that in him, and we were waiting for it, and it finally happened.
Yeah, I'm glad the world gets to know that his nickname is Big Christmas as well, because that's an all timer.
Yeah, I've never picked up where it came from. What where
I
how
have no idea,
yeah,
but I'm rocking with it. I first heard it like probably like June, July when
yeah,
he first came up. I have no idea where it started, but I'm rocking with it. It's such a good nickname.
it's almost better to not know the origin and just be like, yeah, that's
Yeah,
Big Christmas out there.
just don't question it. Just you got to know that this is it. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
incredible that like it is also incredible that you can literally just nickname him Junk, and he still has a better actually like manufactured nickname rather than just something that's a short version of his actual name.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I
Because I
mean,
feel like the notion of like nicknaming people just on short versions of their name is like very tired,
right.
right? It's been done a million times, and people, it works for a lot of people, right? Like, I mean, Gronk is such a famous, iconic nickname, and it comes from a very natural place. Jonk feels very similar. It sounds the same, but the fact that instead we get to use Big Christmas is just incredible.
Yeah, it is great. And also with Jonk, like, you know, this guy, fits the mold.
100%. It
If
feels
he
like
was
a
a
video
175
game boss.
pound utility
Yeah,
infielder, it might not it might not hit the same.
it feels like a God of War boss.
Yeah.
Like I gotta go fight Jonk, and it's like just this big muscular dude.
If you wanted to if you wanted me to draw, I'm not an artist by any means, but if you wanted me to draw a guy with the nickname Jonk who plays baseball, I'd probably draw John Kensey Noel.
Yeah,
Um, big slugger, likes to hit the ball hard and far. But yeah, so yeah, the game continues into extras. Uh no extra runner. Was this the first extra inning game of this postseason?
I was thinking about it. I think it is right.
Yeah.
Is
Uh,
the yeah
yeah, I think everything else ended in
all
nine
of the other?
innings.
I'm like thinking of all the other close games, like the Mets Brewers game three. That was nine.
Yeah.
Uh, the Mets Phillies game two. That was nine.
Yeah,
Right, or was that 10?
both Orioles games
Yeah.
were nine. The Castellanos walk-off was in the ninth, I'm pretty sure.
Hmm.
Um, pretty sure.
Yeah.
I, I'm actually gonna. I have a Francisco Alvarez's reference page, so I'm just gonna go to the game logs just to make
Yeah,
sure.
there you go.
Because now
No, I'm
I'm
pretty sure it was the ninth.
now I'm curious.
Because Mark Vientos hit that. Yeah, because Mark Vientos hit the game tying homer, like with their backs to the walls, and then Castellanos immediately walked off.
Yep, 9 innings. Nine
Yeah.
innings. So yeah, first extra inning game of this postseason. Um, Guardians sort of get into a jam, but get out of it. And then with two strikes and two outs and a man on, David Fry takes a sinker up and in and deposits it over the left center field wall. And walks it off for Cleveland, changes the series, changes the dynamics of the series a little bit here. That 10th inning home run had a 0.374 win probability added, which is the 10th highest in Cleveland postseason history. Yeah, I mean, just like we talked about the series, how the Guardians have been getting the hits when they needed to, and in Game 3, finally they kind of come through with that.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously still going to take a lot for the Guardians to win this series, but it's cool that, this series has at least so far given us something memorable because the first two games were, to put it very nicely, very forgettable,
Yeah, yeah, and
right?
we kind of talked.
Outside of Yankees fans, there's not a whole lot where you're like, oh, remember that one like Juan Soto home run that just like scraped into the Yankees bullpen?
Right, right.
The Stanton home run in game one was pretty cool. He crushed that.
Yeah, that's true.
Judge breaking out in game two, like finally homering.
Yeah, that was a good moment. I feel like I've seen that a billion times, whether it was, his rookie year or whatever. But like the Judge home run that doesn't actually end up making a difference in the game, but everyone at Yankee Stadium freaks out over it.
Oh yeah.
It's 6-1 and he hits a 2-run homer and it's like, oh my God, the Chambers.
Yeah.
All
Um,
rise.
the
Um,
fact that two like Cleveland is it's a dead ball franchise. It's been around forever. They've been to the postseason plenty of times, especially in like the wild card era. So they've probably played some of the most postseason games since like the round expansion. The fact that two of the 10 biggest plays the franchise has ever had by win probability added both happened in this game is pretty cool.
yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, I mean, because yeah, and it's not even like they've had like many postseason droughts in the wild card era. Like they were, active in the 90s, had a few appearances in the 2000s and whatnot. Obviously, late 2010s they were, in the race consistently.
Yeah.
So it's not even a matter of they were just not in the playoffs, really, because that was my first instinct. And then I realized, yeah, they've been in the playoffs. So yeah, I mean, obviously
Yeah,
very,
I
very
mean,
impactful.
you talk about the 1920 World Series, you talk about the 1948. It's like, no, these two moments were actually bigger than both.
Yeah, yeah. Try telling that to, a 95-year-old Guardians fan who might have been at the 48 World Series.
What
Um,
was the biggest CWPA moment of the 1920 World Series for Cleveland?
for Cleveland. Yeah, I don't know. To be honest, I couldn't tell you many people on that team. I know Ray Chapman was on that team, but he died in the middle of the season, so I don't think he kept
Yeah.
going. Um,
All right, let's see this. This has become a 1920 World Series podcast.
yeah, that's just kind of our destiny, at least, I think.
The biggest CWPA, wow, it was 182. That's so lame. Oh no, that's regular win probability added 6.63%. That's still tough. It was game six, of course. Well, I mean, we should have known this. It was game six, bottom of the sixth with two outs. The iconic George Burns double off of
Oh yeah.
Sherry Smith. Yeah, I don't have to say it, right?
Yeah, I
Like we
remember
all,
I remember like
it was the lone run scored in this game over the Brooklyn Robins. It forced the game seven that they won 3-0. We all know this, but yeah,
yeah.
what
Yeah,
a low scoring World Series, by the way. 3-1, 3-0, 2-1, 5-1, 8-1, 1-0, 3-0.
and I thought
For,
this
for
was
and you're telling me this was the live ball era?
I was about to say that.
Yeah.
And I thought this was the live ball era. It started in 1920, allegedly.
One of my favorite immaculate grid names, Burley Grimes, started Game 7 for the Robins in
There
this
we go.
series.
There we
He
go.
pitched, yeah, 7 innings, 7 hits, 3 runs, 2 earned, 4 walks, 2 strikeouts.
Wonderful
Yeah,
work. Wonderful work.
heck of a
Yeah,
job. But
no.
obviously, the stage belonged to What is it? Stan Kovalsky. 9 innings pitched, 5 hits, no runs, no ones, no walks, and 1 strikeout in Game 7.
Yeah, really. That's the guy who pitches to contact for sure.
Yeah,
And Jhonkensy, Noel, and David Fry outdid all of that,
yeah,
shockingly,
in one game.
in one game over George Burns and
Mhm.
his immaculate double.
Yeah,
But yeah, and yeah, we talked about it last episode how the past two LDS is the best game to happen in that series ended up being completely irrelevant because it was the only game that team won, whether it be 2023 Braves in game two or 2024 Phillies in game two. And there's a bad feeling that that's gonna what it's gonna turn into for the Guardians. This might be their only win, but we're rooting against that. But just saying, it's a
we just want a
strong
good
possibility.
series because, yeah, I mean that gave us so much hope last night. Real quick, the Jhonkensy Noel home run had a 6.1 CWPA. It was almost a greater win probability added than the best play that Cleveland had 104 years ago
Yeah, what a
in the World Series. But this was Game 3 of the championship series when they were already losing 2-0.
what a shame. What a
That's
shame.
tough.
Um,
So as we're recording this, the ALCS will continue tonight. It is Luis Heel versus Gavin Williams in Game 4, and then presumably a rematch of Game 1. Except I don't think Alex Cobb's on the roster anymore, so I don't know who's pitching for the Guardians on Saturday. But regardless, it's 2-1 Yankees right now. And one more stat for Game 3. The Guardians became the fifth team since 2015 to have at least 3 barrels in the ninth inning or later of a postseason game. Of course, it was the Jhonkensy Noel home run, the David Fry walk off, and then the Lane Thomas double that set up the Jhonkensy Noel home run in the ninth as well.
yeah,
So
that was
So
um
now we move on to the National League Championship Series. Um, it looked like it was going to be a lot more competitive after the first 2 games, but the first 2 games at Citi Field have kind of shut that narrative down for now. Chris, what have you been seeing out of the NLCS?
oh yeah, I mean I predicted this would go seven and I predicted, they would split the first two, which they did, but I also thought that the Mets were going to win two out of three in Citi Field, and that's definitely not going to happen, and they might lose all three at Citi Field. So yeah, I thought definitely, the advantage was going to tip over to the Mets in Citi Field. But, in reflection, it's been, you know, the Dodgers have won three games, and the only game the Mets have won is one where they had a clear pitching advantage with
Yeah,
Manaea going against the
bullpen.
Dodgers bullpen. So with Landon Knack picking up a bulk of their kind of workload, or at least the highest bulk of their workload. So it's been kind of all Dodgers. They've won all the games that they've won by at least eight.
Yeah,
That's
it
pretty
feels if the Mets come
ridiculous.
back and win, if the Mets come back and win, it feels very how you say 1960.
Yes.
You
Yep.
know,
Yeah. If they win, some close games, yeah, they're if people don't understand, I think the Yankees outscored the Pirates 55-27 in the 1960 World Series and lost the World Series. Um, one of the crazier things to happen, but Mets could do that. But yeah, I think the run differential war is not going to be won, but they could, or the run differential battle is not going to be won, but
most likely, yeah.
they can
That's a lot.
they can win the ultimate war. But
Mhm.
but yeah, it's looking pretty bleak for them right now. Is obviously they have only one home game left, no matter what, and then they got to win three in a row.
It
So
is like I feel like given the way that the Mets have been this year, this I feel like they have the Dodgers exactly where they want them right now, right?
that is, you do bring up a
Like
good
this is
point
this is
there.
when this team thrives, is when everything's up against them.
That is a good
So
point. And
can't count them out yet.
yeah, what better way to be up against the wall than, having to go back to Dodger Stadium after this. And yeah, I think this is actually very good planning of them. Um, I think maybe they thought that being going down 3-0 would be too aggressive, because when
Yeah.
one team's done it, but yeah, no. Going on to game one and what happened there. Um, Kodai Senga starts again. It does not work out for the Mets, unfortunately. He has some control issues. 13 of the first 16 pitches he threw were balls, and he walked three of the first four batters. Almost got out of it, but allowed a two-run single to Max Muncy, which gave the Dodgers a lead that they would never give up. Dodgers kind of kept scoring. They scored three in the fourth to make it 6-0. They just kind of kept doing it with runners in scoring position, which is a large part of winning in general. They went 5 for 11 with only one strikeout and had a 40% line drive rate with runners in scoring position on Sunday. And then Jack Flaherty had himself a good performance. Had a little bit of luck go his way, but it wouldn't have mattered anyway. He went 7 scoreless, 2 hits, 2 walks, and 6 strikeouts. So not only performed well, but saved the Dodgers bullpen. And obviously helps having such a large lead where you don't really have to go to the bullpen that quickly. But yeah, it was just pure dominance from the Dodgers in game one.
Yeah, no, it was excellent. I don't know about you, Chris, but my major takeaway from this game was that Jack Flaherty is re-signing with the Dodgers this offseason.
Interesting. What brings you to that conclusion?
Well, I don't know if you've heard this, Chris, but Jack Flaherty went to Harvard Westlake High School. Believe it or
Yeah.
not, that's in California. He was actually teammates with Lucas Giolito and Max Fried. I don't know if you've ever heard this or not. Is this new information for you?
Um, yeah, I didn't know any MLB players ever went to the same high school.
No, no, they were there at the same time though. That's the thing.
What?
Yeah, they're all in the same rotation.
No, could you
You're,
imagine? Could you
you're,
imagine you get out of like your algebra 2 class
you're,
and then
you're
you gotta
you have to
face
do your
those
book
three
report, and then
you
you
gotta
go and you
face
gotta
those
face
three guys?
and you gotta face Fried, Giolito, and Flaherty. No, but
Oh.
Jack Flaherty obviously grew up a Dodgers fan. There's a lot of talk in the broadcast about how he grew up watching Dodger games, how he rooted for them growing up, and he went out and gave them this outing, 7 shutout innings in game one of the NLCS. The Dodgers, kind of lucked their way into getting him because the Yankees were supposed to trade for him, but they didn't like his medicals. And we know that the luck the Dodgers have had with starting pitching in the last few years, right? With Glass now getting hurt, with Dustin May just never catching a break. Same with Tony Gonsolin. Uh, so it feels like they're looking at Flaherty as a guy that they want to keep going forward. Obviously, he's pitched his way into a much better contract this time around than he got in his last free agency. If I had to guess, he probably didn't get the qualifying offer last year, did he? Actually, no, he definitely didn't because he was traded. So he will be QO eligible for the first time. I would have to imagine he declines that because he's probably getting a multi-year deal at this point. Um,
Yeah.
I have
'Cause,
a
like,
feeling they also might move on from Walker Bueller, which means that there's a hole to fill, and Jack Flaherty might be that guy with the hope that they have guys coming back, right? Like Otani coming back, Glass now being healthy, maybe Dustin May, maybe Gonsolin, like I mentioned, Kershaw, if they re-sign him.
yeah. Yeah. Because yeah, with the Dodgers, they need to fill out a staff, they need like 11 guys because they know they're gonna
Yeah.
have a full staff,
Because don't
on the
forget,
hill.
with all the starting pitching they have, they're still doing a bullpen game in the playoffs, and if they win, they're going to do one in the World Series.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of crazy how that's worked out. Yeah, no, I think that it definitely makes sense and the things are definitely aligning because yeah, obviously Jack Flaherty, Southern California guy, there's a picture or there's a, you know, I think pictures of him at Dodgers games or in Dodgers jerseys as a young child. So yeah, I think things definitely align there. So yeah, that'll definitely be interesting to look at because I think he definitely likes it there. His performance dipped off a little bit from where it was in Detroit, but was setting a very high standard for himself in Detroit, so it could be that.
Yeah.
But yeah, had himself a very good outing, and if he continues that, that looks very good for him as someone I think still in his late 20s, looking for a multi-year deal. Um,
The Dodgers had, I believe, 10 batted balls in this game with an expected batting average above 580.
yeah, they a lot of line drives, a lot of yeah, good amount of hard contact as well. They were doing really, really well. Um, and then game two comes around, and the script is kind of flipped. The Mets get out to a very hot start. They score 6 runs in the first 2 innings, partially due to a combination of hard contact and patience. Francisco Lindor starts out the game with a home run to put them on top immediately. But overall, in those first 2 innings, the Mets had 6 100+ mile per hour batted balls, as well as 3 walks. So, when they weren't hitting the ball hard, they were still usually getting on base. Mark Vientos had a big moment there with a home run in the second inning. But yeah, they just kept putting runners on. They kept hitting the ball hard and ended up in 6 runs for them. Sean Manaea kind of holds it down and does what he needs to do, goes 5 innings, allows 2 earned runs, 2 hits, 4 walks, and 7 strikeouts. And the Dodgers, unlike they were in game one, they were, not executing in the clutch moments. They went 1 for 9 with 4 strikeouts, with runners in scoring position, and had no batted balls between 1 and 45 degrees, which is typically where all the hits are, is between 1 and 45 degrees.
Yeah.
So if you're not getting it in there, you're probably not getting any hits, and that's part of why they went 1 for 9 with runners in scoring position. But yeah, the Mets kind of flipped the script, and it looked pretty good for them heading into game three.
Yeah, the Mets obviously they looked good in those. They did have that third time through the order kind of moment again, like they had in game two against the Phillies. They left Sean Manaea out there to face the order a third time. It didn't go great, but they were able to hold it down. The bullpen was able to do their job. Game three, yeah, it goes back to Citi Field, and I mean the story for both games three and four just felt very meshed. Walker Buehler was very good in this one. Not the longest outing, but 4 innings pitched, 3 hits, no runs, 2 walks, 6 strikeouts, a 53% whiff rate, 39% called strike and whiff rate, and 6 out of 7 whiffs on his knuckle curve. So that's yeah, he was awesome. What more do you have on Walker Buehler, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, this was so surprising to see, as considering what he'd been doing all season. But he was just getting swing and miss after swing and miss. Out of 1,203 plate appearance, or excuse me, out of 1,203 playoff appearances with 50 plus pitches thrown in the StatCast era, Bueller had the fourth highest whiff rate in a game. That goes back to 2015. With any playoff appearance with 50 plus pitches thrown, Bueller has the fourth highest whiff rate in a game. And that game being Wednesday night's game. And also, he had the highest whiff rate he's ever had in a start with 80 plus pitches. And obviously, Bueller's not at his peak form right now, but to see him do that in a pretty critical game three for the Dodgers, that was pretty unbelievable to see, especially considering the game was not really decided up to that point when, every inning he threw was a pretty critical inning. So yeah, seeing him do that was pretty amazing and definitely upped his stock at least a little bit. And at the very least, gave the Dodgers a pretty big boost. So yeah, the 4 scoreless innings out of him were pretty vital, and it helped the Dodgers out and helped them to an 8-0 victory. I couldn't find too much on what the Dodgers did as an offense, but I did see they had 7 walks. So
Mm.
Mets pitchers allowed 7 walks, but yeah, the Dodgers got on base, took advantage of some opportunities, had some guys go yard. I know KK Hernandez went yard. Shohei Ohtani had a 3-run homer later in the game.
Yeah.
So some good power hitting, some good getting on base from the Dodgers, and yeah, just another game they end up kind of dominating.
The Mets had a 172 expected batting average as a team. That's not very good.
Yeah, that is not very good. Doesn't help um when you have a 53% whiff rate against Walker Buehler. Um,
Yeah, that certainly doesn't help at all.
yeah. But yeah, Dodgers win convincingly in game three, and then they win convincingly again in game four.
Yeah. Real
Um,
quick, so it was an 8-0 win for the Dodgers in game three. They became the eighth team as of right now in postseason history with at least 4 shutouts. in a single postseason. And if you look at the other teams, it's 2016 Cleveland with five, and then with four, it is the 1905 New York Giants with Christy Mathewson, the 1998 114 win New York Yankees, the 2010 Giants, World Series champions, the 2012 Giants, also World Series champions, the 2020 Braves, who shut out teams like the Reds and Marlins, and then the 2021 World Series champion Braves. So the Dodgers are in some pretty good company there. Four shutouts in a total postseason so far.
Shout out to the 1905 Giants who did that in one series.
Yeah, seriously.
That's, I mean, yeah,
Yeah, you might notice a lot of those teams are recent, and there's a reason for that. Yeah, the
yeah,
Giants allowed a grand total of how many runs the whole series? Of three runs the whole series, and they were all in game two. They lost to Chief Bender, so no shame there.
yeah, that's all good. But yeah, no, that's pretty hilarious that they were able to do that. But yeah, no, Dodgers pitching has come through, and that was kind of a concern coming in, at least on past history, because we know what happened against the Diamondbacks last year, um, and some of the pitching they've had in critical moments in the past. But they have, you know, the offense has made it, winnable for them, but the Dodgers pitching has kind of made it where these games have not been winnable for the Mets. So yeah, on to game four. It's kind of more of the same in game four. Uh,
Mm.
it kind of starts out fairly competitive, but the Dodgers eventually break away. Um, the Mets pitchers walked nine Dodgers batters, and the Dodgers took advantage. They went 6 for 15 with runners in scoring position, had a 50% line drive rate. 10 batted balls, five line drives with runners in scoring position. League average on line drive is like 650. So that's very good to have. Very good to be hitting line drives in those moments and driving those runners in. Meanwhile, the Mets, they had their opportunities with runners in scoring position as well, but they did not take advantage. They went 0 for 10 and had zero line drives with runners in scoring position. So both teams had their chances, but the Dodgers definitely took advantage of theirs, while the Mets did not. Yeah, Yoshinobu Yamamoto had a good outing in terms of missing bats and at least getting some bulk of innings. He went four and a third, uh, allowed four hits, two runs, one walk, eight strikeouts, had a 40% whiff rate and 38% called strike and whiff rate. Just allowed he allowed a home run, which contributed to at least one run that he had. But yeah, ultimately was able to strike a lot of guys out and avoid um, too many too many base runners. Only allowed five base runners. So yeah, the Dodgers just kind of it's like the same three games played out with their three wins.
Yeah, right. All Dodgers wins have felt very similar. But I think it's huge that Yoshinobu Yamamoto had the strikeout stuff in game four. I mean, that was obviously kind of the lone issue that he had in the game five against the Padres. He wasn't getting a lot of swings and misses. So 16 of them on the night last night. Also just you got to show some kind of appreciation. Shohei Ohtani has each of the three hardest hit balls throughout the series so far, and it's not even close. He has three balls hit above 115 miles per hour. No one else has hit harder than 110.
Yeah. Also, the most hilarious video, and obviously we were watching it live, but um, there's the graphic where it said he was 0 for 23 or whatever with the bases empty. He immediately hit a home run with the bases empty to lead off the game.
Yeah. He
Uh,
also just the fact that he's like gotten all of his hits with runners on too. There was a graphic right before he homered in game three that said he was 16 for his last 19 with runners in scoring position. He came up with guys on first and second, then hit a three-run homer to make it 17 for his last 20. So I mean, yeah.
yeah,
I don't know if there's a way to find like if that's ever happened. You got to go like split span finder both
yeah,
and also
it's
per PA and not per game. But yeah, 17 for 20 with runners in scoring position.
yeah, because you
Or
mentioned
excuse me, with runners. Yeah, with runners in scoring position. Yeah.
in last episode that Otani had a 623 OPS in the NLDS, and that surprised me because I was like, I feel like he's had some big moments, and he has. It's just when it hasn't been a big moment outside of yesterday in the leadoff spot, um, he just hasn't had he hasn't like gotten on base. He hasn't had like any like useless singles or useless doubles that didn't get, turned into anything. It just, yeah, when the runners have been on, he has been unbelievable. So that's better. It's a lot better than the opposite, that's for sure. Um, but yeah, Dodgers lead
Yeah, throughout the
3-1.
postseason overall, he has a 91.1 mile per hour average exit velocity, 235 batting average with a 265 expected batting average, 500 slugging with a 693 expected slugging, which I suspect means he's hit a lot of balls to center field.
Yeah, that could be the case.
Let's see, what are we looking at here with the spray chart? Yeah, a couple flyouts to dead center. Um, but yeah, everything else has been also a 116 mile per hour single. That doesn't help
Yeah,
for X slug. Expected batting average, it's fine. Yeah, this was the
right.
ball in game one that he like clanged off the wall. It was hits. It was just one of those balls that was hit so hard. Wait, why was it a? Oh, okay. It was he went to second on a fielder's choice. Gotcha. So they
Mm,
counted as a single, but he was on second.
interesting, interesting. Yeah, because it must have been with guys on, and they must have thrown to a different base. We just advanced on the throw.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, the Dodgers are up 3-1. I feel like I haven't felt this confident about a Dodgers team in the playoffs in at least a few, since 2021. Like I've had a
Yeah,
lot of confidence in them in 2021. It didn't work
maybe
out for them, but
2022 though. 2022 could be
but I guess in terms of like like
after having done something.
after at least a couple postseason games, yeah, I
Hmm.
like this
Because I mean,
is
2022, we were like, yeah, the Padres aren't winning a game this series.
right, right, yeah, yeah,
I said the same
exactly,
for the D-backs. I had them sweeping the D-backs in 2023. But yeah, I
right,
mean, they're definitely putting a lot of the narratives to rest for right now. Um, I mean, I think a lot of people thought automatically thought first round exit. I think a lot of people still maybe think the Padres were a better team, and maybe that's true, maybe it's not, but they didn't execute when they needed to, and the Dodgers have. I mean, the pitching was always the big question we had about this team, and we mentioned it earlier: four shutouts, one of eight teams to do that in a single postseason.
yeah, yeah, which is surprising because yeah, in terms of how we outlook the staff. I feel like we've had a lot of more impressive Dodgers rotations and more impressive Dodgers bullpens that haven't been able to pitch to this level. But yeah, pretty great work by the Dodgers, and yeah, it very much looks like they're going to go to the World Series here if the Mets don't pull off a miracle.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah. So anything more before we wrap up?
No, I think that's kind of all we had. I mean, we'll definitely have some off time before the World Series. Depends on how much we'll have. We don't know at this point. It could be 4 days, 5 days. It could be 2 days if the ALCS goes seven at least. But
Mhm.
uh, yeah, I mean, one of the series could be over tonight, and both series could be over by tomorrow night. Thank
Yep.
God for Game Three of the ALCS, because if both games had the potential to be over tonight, that would suck.
That would be very unfortunate for sure. For sure. But yeah, that does it for this installment of Above Replacement Radio. If you are listening on an Apple Podcast or Spotify and want to watch the conversation as it happens, go to the YouTube channel. It is called Above Replacement Radio. We have all of our guest interviews in a playlist on there. So check out Jeff Passan, Chris Rose, Sarah Langs, Mike Petriello, and Foolish Bailey interviews, or one of the four Mark Simon interviews that we've had. And also follow us on social media. Follow me on Twitter at Chris_Gianta. Follow Daniel on both Twitter and Instagram at Daniel_Curran. And follow the show Instagram at Above Replacement Radio for all the show needs. We hope you enjoyed this one, and we hope to see you next time where we will be talking all the happenings in Major League Baseball. Well, we will be previewing the World Series. Yeah, we will be previewing the World Series next time. So we will see you then.
This conversation is over.
Is over.